a pretty we have a pretty cool story, I'm not gonna lie, with how we met. We, were going to school at the University of Minnesota, and the summer before we started college, we were
Mhm.
on, like, the Facebook page for the University of Minnesota,
Like,
try
find your roommate.
Oh, yes,
and,
yes.
we just kind of matched up, and, I wasn't out at the time, but, Fletcher was, so I
Okay.
was a little bit nervous about that and had to consider being roommates with him because I was just not truly myself yet and was just a
Mhm.
little bit, I don't know, I was a little uncomfortable,
Demure.
and
Yeah.
then ended up, kind of not being able to stop talking, and you know, we'd FaceTime for 3 hours at a time, we'd meet up
Okay,
to
just like
go.
casual
Yeah,
casual
Yeah.
roommate
yeah,
conversations,
We
we
went
3-hour
on, like
FaceTimes.
yeah, we went on, like, roommate dates, like, you know, like, when do you do your laundry, when do you go to bed, like, sort of things,
I love
and
it,
it,
yeah.
like, progressed into more. We went to the Book of Mormon in Minneapolis together. It was like we were really hitting it off.
and, like, the
So
little dinner that we were supposed to have would end up, like, being, like, a 24-hour date.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm dead. I mean, that's a sign. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
my college roommate was like, "Hey, you seem cool. Do you maybe wanna rush? Like, are you a fashion major? Cool.
Yeah, no, it was
Slay."
not this.
no, so we're
So we
like,
moved in together. Like, we've never not lived together in our
never.
whole
That's
relationship.
I don't think
wild.
we've
Yeah,
been apart from each other for more than maybe 4 or 5 days at a
Oh
literally.
time.
my god.
And now we just celebrated 7 years a couple days ago.
Oh my god, congrats.
Thank you.
So, I mean,
Thanks.
that's a chunk of time, you guys.
It is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially in gay years, it's
It's
even
really
more.
yours.
But, no, that's really how we met, and then we
Mhm.
ended up, being in school there for about a year and a half, and then, started interning here in New
Okay.
York. I was at, Schumacher, which is a home design, textile company, and then Fletcher was at, Zero Maria Cornejo,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is like a smaller,
yes.
clothing line, and then we ended up just loving it so much we, stopped attending the University of Minnesota and moved here, like, 2 months later.
Okay, absolute mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys from the Midwest?
We are,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Minnesota, Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm Chicago
Oh,
area.
Oh,
okay,
wow,
nice.
Yes, and then I went to
nice.
school at Kent State in Ohio,
Okay.
but,
Oh.
like, also totally get I did 2 years at Kent, and I was like, "I need to get out of here." Took 10 million credits to graduate early, and then did the rest of school in New York, so I
Okay.
Okay.
get the sentiment of,
That's
"Okay, this is great and all, but, like."
that's
It
basically
was
what
a
we
good
did too,
stepping
yeah.
stone.
Yeah, yeah. Once I feel like you get a taste of New York, it's hard to then, like, walk away.
It
Oh,
is.
yeah. We
Yeah.
spent the summer here and immediately we're like, "Okay, we're moving back." We went back to Minnesota for, like, a few months, packed our things, moved back
Mhm.
immediately.
And it was, like, our parents' biggest nightmare that we wouldn't come back, and it came true.
And yeah, like, you're right. There is, like, I don't know, I feel like being from the Midwest, like, even if it's not a place that's particularly judgy, it's also still not, like, furthering you of in the way of when you get to New York and you're like, the creative sparks are going off. You're in these environments and, like,
Right. Your
everything just starts
creativity is
rolling.
is so, like, appreciated here versus
Yes.
more, like I
It's
never
more
felt, like,
like
shunned from my creativity, but it was
Yeah,
more just, like, it could only reach a certain point.
I
You could only push
agree.
so many boundaries.
yeah, there's, like, boxes
Mhm.
that you're stuck in, I feel like, or everybody's just
Yeah.
kinda set in their ways, like, nothing too toxic, but it's just like, I need
It's
more.
exactly, exactly. Okay, interesting. So then you guys ended up coming here, and then how did it go from, "Okay, we're interning, doing all of that," to wanting to then start your own line?
I think that starting our own line really came when COVID hit. We were both interning, and Tanner wasn't interning. He had a job like staging home, like real estate
Uh-huh.
properties. And so I was interning at YSL, and COVID hit, and we were like, well, what the hell are we going to do?
Yeah.
We were like just graduating school. We were in our senior year, and I was like, interviewing at different companies, ready for a job, and everything just
You're just
went to
like,
shit.
"Plot twist." Yep.
Yeah. So we moved home for like a month and a half,
Mhm.
and just like pondered what we're going to be doing. And while we were home, our creative juices were flowing. We had a lot of unemployment money coming in. We were making like
Yeah.
more money than ever before.
Isn't that funny with, like, going from the intern or, like, I was still kind of like I would say, like, assistant-esque level within the fashion industry when it hit, and yeah, like, sometimes the employment money was better than the minimum wage fashion money.
Oh yeah,
I
I was
miss
working
that.
like 2
Right,
days a week minimum wage and then all of a sudden made tons more in
right.
unemployment. So it was the perfect time to start a business.
I saw this one quote recently that was like, if rent was lower, art would be better. And I feel like that's the perfect reflection
It's
of
so
that
true.
time,
Mhm.
right? It was like everyone kind of had that space to like think in different ways as you didn't have so much of that pressure.
It's
Even the
like more
pressure,
security.
yeah, yeah. Even less pressure too of like you have to be at XYZ place and networking with these people and like doing all of that. Like creativity ended up flourishing.
Right, it really did.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we really just kind of took a leap of faith and started doing like tote bags and some
Hmm.
t-shirts and pillows and
Tanner used to have this little company in high school and middle school called Vintage Twist, and he would make his own little
Cute.
handbags and pouches and pillows
Oh
and
my
would
God,
sell
I love
them
this.
at like
yeah.
craft fairs. I guess I can let you tell more about it, but
Wait,
I
that's
we
mean,
where
do,
this
yeah.
it was
started.
pretty much just like a little side thing that I did. I didn't really want like a basic job in high school, and
Hmm.
I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to make money doing things on my own terms, which is kind of how we both are,
Mood.
us in
Yep.
starting the business. But
Hmm.
um, I would really just use a lot of vintage textiles and create like tote bags and pillows and little zipper pouches and really just anything that I could figure out how to make at the time. And it kind of just
Yeah.
sparked, I guess, my s- love of fashion and creativity that way.
Every
I
time we go back to his hometown, we still see some of the things like at thrift stores, or we'll see people carrying it
Wow.
around.
it got pretty distributed through our community,
I think
so
that's pretty
it was
major.
It's so
nice.
fun. His mom will like pick up anything she sees at the thrift store, so she has like a little
It's
collection.
like
Yeah,
archival.
it's
Yeah.
archival.
Yes.
So I feel like that's like what we started with when
Uh-huh.
during COVID. We were like, let's just do this for a little
Kind of because
extra
like, I
thing.
knew what I was doing in terms of making tote bags, because like,
Yeah,
we made
right.
everything ourselves at the beginning because factories were shut down, we didn't have, like, resources out there.
How did you know how to do I mean, like, yes, repurposing the vintage, but also, I mean, so much goes into design work, and neither of you guys come from a design background, right?
No,
No.
No.
both on the business side of fashion.
Okay, yeah.
And interior design really for me is where I started, and I finished, in the interior or sorry, in the fashion side, but
Okay.
kind of a good mix of both.
So, like, pulling from there, I okay, that makes sense. I would imagine, like, a lot of, yeah, textile work,
Yeah,
obviously,
and,
like,
like, a
pulled
lot of
from
the
that.
inspiration of the brand is really coming from interiors, but,
Mhm.
once we started doing, like, the smaller totes and all that stuff, we started getting a couple stockists and people ordering, and we're like, "Okay, this is interesting. We
Okay,
could maybe make
major,
something out of this."
yeah.
Mhm.
So then we ended up, just taking a complete dive in, and we're like, "Okay, we're doing ready to wear. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're gonna figure it out."
Hell yeah, why not?
No clue. But yeah, that's like what sparked us to like create the world of Tanner Fletcher. Like, let's start creating a brand and like
Mhm.
who our customer is, what our mission is.
Which I wanna dive into that
Yeah.
also. Tell me about the world of Tanner Fletcher. I mean, it's a namesake label too. Like, how are you guys integrating yourself into this? Like, what's the whole ethos?
I mean, luckily, we have a lot of, very similar traits and,
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
we like in terms of, like, aesthetic, but we kind of bring to the table a little bit different things, I guess. I'm a little
Mhm.
bit more minimal and more maybe, like, classic,
Mhm.
and Fletcher is a little bit more maximalist, a little bit more, like, boundary pushing, um,
I love it
maybe a
for
little
you.
bit more
Yeah.
retro.
Thanks.
So we really just kind of, like, blend our worlds together to create what is Tanner Fletcher today.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
feel like the brand is a true representation of like almost like the marriage of us coming together
Yeah.
and like our personalities and our upbringing and our background and kind of our experiences in the world. It's just like a true reflection of that.
Mhm.
And
Amazing.
we really design 50-50. So there's, each collection, there's like a really nice balance between, the more maximalist, more minimalist. Like we really try and make sure that each of us is really represented. And uh
I'm curious about that process too. Like when you are
Yeah.
saying like splitting 50-50, I feel like I always like wonder that when I hear design, like design partners. And I'm like, are you both looking at like one sketch together? Or is like somebody really owning dresses and someone's owning tops and then you trade pieces of paper and you're like, actually, I would switch XYZ. You know, for somebody who doesn't know the design process that in depthly, what does that look like?
It's hectic to say the least.
Yeah.
And we don't, like you said, don't come from a design background.
We don't
Neither of
even
us
sketch.
sketch.
Oh my God, yeah.
So we like,
What do you do?
we have our own language, really. I think we just know each other really well.
Yeah.
We find, inspiration in vintage garments and
Mhm.
vintage interior design, all things from past eras. We can take anything, like a coaster, we can
That.
get inspiration from it. And it's really just, I don't know, combining each other's likes or dislikes. We really just balance each other out. So I think the
Mhm.
final product, it it tends to be better because it's balanced by both of us.
That makes sense. That
Because
makes
I might
sense.
think, oh, this is a little bit too simple. Or I might make something that he might think, okay, this is a little bit too basic. We need to push ourselves a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. And then it ends up being a better product because of it. Or sometimes he'll do something that's maybe a little bit more over the top. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay, let's rein it down a little bit.
You're like, love where your head's at, but
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of a nice balancing act. And, we split up like a lot of other areas of the business. So like
Mhm.
I'm more on like the production and sampling side. So like once we decide on like the final garments that are going to be produced, I kind of just facilitate it and facilitate, what is going to be the inventory on our website and for wholesale partners. But then Fletcher on the other side, while I'm doing that, is working on, he's working with our PR, he's working with customers, he's working with
Mhm.
VICs, the
It's really like we
website.
divide and conquer after we've designed the
Okay,
collection.
Yeah.
yes. But
Yeah.
at the forefront, it's like fashions first.
But
This
we
is what's bringing it.
also design the collection throughout, like, all the way up until the show because, we'll get something back from the factory and we're like, "Oh, we should maybe run a little bit more with this concept because it turned out better than we expected." So it's like up until then, things
Oh,
are happening. So, like,
interesting.
the collection right now for September, it's
Mhm.
July now, almost. Um,
This will be out like August, September, so
okay.
we'll
So
align.
so at this
Yeah.
point,
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
still
Yes.
be making samples and figuring things out up until literally the last week of
That
until the
is
show.
wild. I mean, I can only imagine what your headspace is like at that point. Now I'm sure already you're like spinning with everything going on. When you are designing that collection, so fashion comes first, all of that, we're really putting in, getting that collection up and ready. Where are you seeking the inspiration for that? Of okay, vintage is so important to us, all of that. But do you have like where are you curating it all?
A
Private
little bit
boards
of
on
everywhere.
Pinterest.
Private boards on Pinterest, honestly, yeah.
Pinterest, eBay, Etsy, garage sales. Like
Mhm.
we'll go home and like hit up a ton of garage sales in the
Oh,
Midwest.
the Midwest is like the holy grail of thrifting
It
and
really
garage
is.
sales. Oh my God.
It's so
Yes.
good.
So yeah, we'll constantly be thrifting. We'll like find old Victorian garments and kind of we'll take a ruffle off of there and say we want to put that here and like a cuff here. It's kind of like
Yeah.
Frankensteining vintage pieces and creating
Frankensteining it. Yes.
a modern look.
I think what's kind of different about us compared to maybe some other designers is that we're really not trying to create like these brand new cutting edge silhouettes. We're
Mhm.
really taking a lot of classic silhouettes that already exist in the world or have already exist maybe, you know, up to even 100 years ago
Right.
and bringing kind of a modern touch to them and really infusing our world into these garments that are, I'd say the majority of our clothes are quite wearable
For
and,
sure.
they're pieces that we really try to infuse like um, just something very special into each piece. We want people to cherish the clothes and we want them to be passed down and we want people to like really like spark conversation from the clothes. So that's something that's really important in any collection that we do or really any garment that we put out there.
I
And I
think that
think
Yeah. I
even
love that.
increasing more so now, like as we grow the business, we're like, okay, we're not putting anything out there unless it's like checks every single box.
Right. Less is more sometimes.
It
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
It also goes back to like what is Tanner Fletcher and some of our main pillars and like mission points are genderless fashion and bringing interiors and wardrobe together. So I feel like the genderless thing is a big deal when we're designing
Mhm.
because we're really creating garments that anybody can wear, or it's on like a fluidity scale.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like some of those, like going back to what you're saying about these tried and true silhouettes, and like those are the ones, I mean, we're both sitting here wearing a blazer, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And like, I feel like a lot of those silhouettes that stand the test of time or cross gender lines, like they're doing that for a reason. Not that other things can't by any means, but I always think about that from a trend perspective. When there's like a flash in a pan trend and all of a sudden it's like super buzzy, and so I do consulting with brands and retailers, and they're like, oh my God, should I be buying XYZ? And you're like, I mean, yes, but also, is it incredibly uncomfortable? What occasions can she like wear that for? Like, is it actually serving a purpose in someone's closet? Where I think it really does go so much further of, okay, we know that everyone loves a good blazer. How can we then like maximize the blazer and make it the coolest one or the most us as possible?
Right.
Right.
That's really what it is. It's not like a trendy thing. It's not
Hmm.
saying like, oh, it's a big deal right now, so we're just going to be genderless to fit the trends. It's really
Right.
just like removing unnecessary labels that kind of get in the way.
How are you approaching the genderless label thing? Because it's all like the buzzword lately and this and that, as I'm sure you guys are hearing. And I can only imagine from your perspective of like, okay, we get it, we get it. What's your take on it?
Well, I think for us, it's something that's been like it wasn't even a question when we started the brand. Like it was
Mhm,
just like assumed that we'd do that because we've always shopped between both the men's and the women's department growing up, and
mhm.
we like to say that we like to take our customer out of a box rather than put them in one.
Love that.
So it's really important for us to be making change in the industry, not just making beautiful clothes, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who can make beautiful clothes, but can they make change and can they tell a story?
Mhm.
No.
No, a
Not
lot of
always.
times no.
So we really have like a mission for greater good to create change in the industry and to make,
Mhm,
genderless fashion more accepted and to make people more embraced. We really want people to embrace their true selves. And we know that if we were to split the categories up to men's and women's right now, we'd probably have more wholesale stores.
uh-huh.
It would be easier to break into the industry, but also we would be just like everybody else, and we don't want to do that.
No,
And now
exactly.
the more validation we get, the more people are starting to catch on to the genderless concept and realize that's not really going anywhere.
No, it's definitely not going anywhere. And I want to circle back to that wholesale question. So basically, if you guys aren't familiar, that means like going through something like a department store or a big nationwide store like that. And typically when you're buying within those categories, it's even so specific of a woman's knit top buyer or a men's like woven pants. And it's so hyper specific. So when this question of genderless labels come up, a lot of times retailers struggle with, okay, where do we put it on the floor? Whose budget is it coming from? What has your guys' experience been with navigating that? Because that was something I struggled with when sourcing new brands and would be really excited about these concepts and understanding how important it is that it's reflecting society. That's what fashion is. And then you're like, okay, my hands are tied. What do I do?
Right. It's kind of a difficult place right now because we're disrupting like the analytics of it all because the
Hmm.
classic analytics are men's and women's. Like you said, if there's a men's knitwear buyer versus a women's knitwear buyer, who buys Tanner Fletcher?
Right.
So it's
It's
kind of
wherever you want Tanner Fletcher to sit in your store.
we should say
That's
that we're
Yeah.
that's
not
it.
creating a new category. Like
No.
genderless fashion is not a
Right.
new category. There's obviously men and women still exist, men and women's fashion still exists. It's really just making it more fluid and taking it out of the box. So yeah, if a women's
Hmm.
store who carries tons of dresses wants to carry our dresses, then they should just know, okay, our women's buyer buys Tanner Fletcher because
Right.
that's where it fits in with our customer.
Yeah, I like it. I like what you said too. If you like it, buy it. It works
Right.
for your
Right.
customer. Great. It
And
doesn't need to be this whole thing.
and I think
Right.
everyone, not everyone, because some people do really get it, but some people are like, "Oh, well, how does this fit everyone?" And we're like, "Okay, if you were to go to a department store right now and you're a woman and you go to the women's section, does
Mhm. Oh
everything fit you?
my
Does
god.
everything look good on you?"
no, I'm like 3 different sizes in the same
Right.
garment,
Yes.
depending on who's making
So
it,
it's the
like
same concept, for us. It's,
yeah.
it's like Fletcher said, we're a brand with clothing on a spectrum of fluidity. And,
Mhm.
we, as much as we'd love to make everybody in the world be able to wear our clothes, that's just not realistic. But
Right.
we want to try and extend our offering to as many people as possible, not just
Mhm.
limiting it to, this dress can only be worn by women's or
And it's
by
really
women.
just a change in wording. We can still
Right.
create the same things as any other brand. It's just making a broader spectrum.
And I
Totally.
think what's like really kept us going, on this path, because like I said, it would be easier to just drop the genderless and say,
Mhm.
okay, we're a women's brand or we're a men's brand. What's really like solidified what we're doing is the amount of people who feel heard and reach out to us because like they haven't seen anything like this and it makes them feel like they finally have somewhere to shop. There's somewhere to look up to for inspiration that's, different than the just the normal. And it's really touching to us because it's what we really set out to do in the first place. And it's really starting to work.
No, that's so amazing. And like fashion really should be a reflection of what's going on societally. And like people are looking for like those communities and like being able to build that and offer that is so incredible. Tell me a little bit more about like, yeah, that community building and seeing this all come to fruition as you continue to grow.
It's like one of the most important things to us
Mhm.
personally, I think, is just building this community. It's really allowing people to feel their authentic selves and
Mhm.
then us surrounding ourselves with those people. And then we're able to be our authentic selves. So it's really just, I don't know.
We have a no asshole policy
Yes.
that is
Love that.
very
Yes.
much our thing. If someone doesn't align with our vision, if a store doesn't align with our vision, doesn't treat us with respect, doesn't treat us like human beings,
Mhm.
We don't
out.
fit in the community.
Hell yeah, get
Get
out.
So it's
out.
like
Right.
where fashion was typically quite exclusive, like, oh, you can't sit with us. We're
Mhm.
exclusive in the way where it's like everybody can sit with us until you're the mean girl. Then get out of
Right. Then
here.
like get out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yo, I so love that. And it's and I feel like it right, like it provides a safe space to be creative, be yourself, and then have it be reflecting back within what you're designing at the end of the day. I also want to know, okay, so you guys setting up, we're talking about Fashion Week right around the corner, new collections coming out. You guys, I feel like, have done such an amazing job with your presentations these past few seasons. Like
Thank you.
is that this prom night that like it's like very like 50s prom night? How are you guys like curating that experience from the clothing into how you're showing it and inviting people in and like sharing your art?
I think what's really important for us is that we have storytelling that goes along with the collection
Mhm.
because we don't want to just send looks down a runway and then like hope people, make a story about it and like, feel the feelings that we're trying to portray.
Yeah.
I think for us, we're not really trying to make clothes that match a theme. We're trying to infuse our clothes into a mundane situation like spring fling or prom,
Yeah.
but we're making it extremely inclusive, sorry, inclusive, and making it very diverse and making it just ways that kind of bend the traditional norms.
And it
Mhm.
also sparks a feeling within, anybody who's attending the show. For us, it's
Yes.
really nostalgia. We love to spark nostalgia in every way. And I feel like we create scenes or spaces where a lot of people are familiar with in
Mhm.
some sort of way. But like for the Spring Fling or our last collection was Slumber Party, it's like repackaging something that everybody already has preconceived notions about and then making them kind of see it in a new light.
Yes. Oh, that's so
Like
nice.
like,
Right.
we grew up, like, wanting to have sleepovers with girls because those were our people, and
Those are all of our friends were women
but,
growing up.
like, in high school that, you know, you had to be separated by boys and girls, you can't do that, I'm like,
Right.
"Well, it's probably more trouble if I was having a slumber party with boys," so,
Right.
um
Exactly. Like, look at it this way,
right.
but
Like, I
So
remember having a slumber party where I invited all my girlfriends over, and some just couldn't come at all, and
Mhm.
some parents had to call my parents and be like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
is it okay? Is this it's like any funny business happening?" So it like, and you end
Yeah.
up feeling bad or like bizarre. I'm like, I at that age didn't fully understand like what was happening.
Oh,
So
for sure. Right. I think that like bizarre is a great word for
yeah,
that. Yeah.
So
and
that's
it all has to do with gender.
Mhm.
right. So that's why we really try to do a topic that, can be twisted a little bit into a way that's more progressive.
I like that. And both of those, like with the spring fling and the slumber party, like those are both so cliche. Like it is this way. Like it is done with a boy asking a girl to the dance, and like that's that. We
Yeah.
like flipping it on its head and yeah, evoking all those like warm, fuzzy emotions and the nostalgia that goes with it, and like bringing that out to people too.
Right. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I think the best fashion comes from disruption.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what we're doing. We're doing it in I'd say a pretty elegant way. We're not
Very
causing a
elegant.
big scene. We're not, doing anything crazy, but we're making people think. And that's I think what's most important is that we make people, have a thought about it.
In the end,
Yeah.
we're disrupting with like kindness.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
It's
not
for the
like
greater good.
And like
yeah,
who can ever get mad at that?
right.
Yes. And I feel like it's one of those things too where it's all about the long game, right? And I think that goes with anything from writing articles to designing clothing, that you could really dive into just doing the same things over and over and like sticking to the status quo, or you could tap in and like what is that unique lens that I'm bringing to this situation and honoring that. I mean, I'm a believer that it pays off in the long run. I guess
Definitely.
we're all in it together and we'll all find out,
Right.
but I think so.
I
I
think
do
so
too.
too. I mean,
Yes.
I just would love to see, like, in 5 years or 10 years, like, what if we have a much larger budget and reach, like, what we could do, because
Mhm.
I think that we could make a lot of change in the industry.
Well, with that being said, the Vogue Fund, congratulations, working with
Thank you.
CFDI. Like, tell me about this. You guys are in the top 10 right now, and we're going to
Yes.
find out if you are the winners, which, hey, fingers crossed, in
Thank you.
October. But I want to hear about this process. For people who aren't familiar, if they're, industry adjacent or outside, what does this whole application process look like? What do you get in the end? Like, what are you guys going through? And right before we hopped on, we were talking about that this was a year-long process, which is like crazy to wrap my mind around.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less than that, but it probably feels like
It
it.
probably does. I mean, hey, with like preparation, brainstorm, all the things.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
pretty intense application, really just going over your past work, your sales figures, your mission, your, you know, so many different assets of the business. And then, uh, you know, we we went through 2 different, rounds
Mhm.
Of
and
application.
of application and made it to the top 10, which we're in now, and
Yes.
very, very grateful for the experience, and we're meeting so many other great designers and just people in the industry that, we never would have met if we didn't have this opportunity, so we're just
Mhm.
really grateful for it.
And for those of you who don't know, it's the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund is like a grant competition hybrid
Yes.
situation. And so, yeah, we made it to the top 10, and the final 3 people are awarded prize money
Mhm.
and mentorship.
So like, those opportunities, if you do win and you do have, more access to funds and like these other people within the industry, like what are some of the things that winners typically do with, those opportunities?
I think one of the more immediate things you see is because of the validation, there's maybe more, uh, entry into wholesale.
Mhm.
Retailers are like, "Oh, they're validated, so, we'll take them in now."
Oh, it is such a conversation of like, well, is so and so doing it yet? Okay, well, we need
Right.
to because they're not
So
doing it.
that's one of the
Yeah.
things, and then I think just the other thing is just the awareness. The brand awareness is, you know, so important, and
Mhm.
especially as we're trying to build our direct to consumer and just really building, like, a community, it opens a lot of doors, especially with it being Vogue and and the CFDA. It
Right.
just like, those are the people that you want, putting your brand out there.
Oh yes, those are people that you want in your court for
So
sure.
it really helps that way, but, I mean, you've seen it with, like, Christopher John Rogers, like, how
Mhm.
far the brand has come since winning. I mean, the countless people, so many of the brands that still exist today have gone through this, whether they've been in the top 10, whether they've won or not. I mean, it's crazy what this program can do for a brand.
Oh
And we
yeah.
were talking with Hillary from Kalina Strada, and she
Mhm.
didn't actually end up winning, which was kind of shocking to me. I was
Oh
like, wait a
yeah.
second, you didn't? But no, she didn't make top 3 at all, but after that, she ended up, like,
Interesting.
blowing up. So it was really interesting to hear kind of what she did and how the fund helped her without winning. It's really like we take away so much no matter what happens.
Oh, absolutely. That's so funny you say that because I mean, even as someone who is ingrained within it, like naming the winners, I do feel like is harder. Is either way, I'm like, oh, I know like this is a really great new brand. Like I should be turning my eyes to this, or what are
Mhm.
they doing? And yeah, I think like Christopher John Rogers is a great example of that. And like the growth is just so incredible to see. And it doesn't just come numerically, but from just all these different facets all
Right.
hitting in. It's really, yeah, so much about like the storytelling, which I do also want to touch on some of your guys' growth too, with like so many people have been wearing your pieces lately, which congratulations. Like some
Thank
of it was
you.
like Bad Bunny recently. Like
Yeah, he's
that's
been our
freaking
biggest, I
major.
think.
Yes, that really is what kind of I don't wanna say, like, took us off, but it
Mhm.
definitely made people look at us, in a new way.
Well,
For
he wore it
sure.
for his cover story of Time magazine. So not only was it Bad Bunny, but it
Yes.
was also Time magazine. So it was just a really big pinch me moment. And he wore our bow suit, which has kind of become our the thing that
Oh,
we're
yes.
known most for. So that just really helped, and we've had tons of bow suit orders ever since then.
Hell
And they just
yeah.
keep on coming.
We love to see it. We love
Yeah.
to see it. And going back, like, kicking off this collection, it wasn't so long ago, 2020. What is like
No,
the
and
progress been like? It has
spring
fast.
and spring summer '22 was actually our first launch with ready to wear.
Wow. Oh my
So,
God.
it hasn't been that long. It
No.
feels like it's been
Feels like 20 years, but
Oh, I'm sure with the amount that all goes into
it's
it.
like one of the things that it feels like it's been so long, but also feels so quick at the same time. It's
Mhm.
it's it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of
struggle maybe that you don't really see on the surface. It's this weird
Oh, yeah.
place that we're in where it's like we have a lot of heads turned towards us and we're growing and growing and growing, but internally we're like, having to learn so quickly and make all these
Right.
decisions and
find money from
find
places.
money. That's the hardest part. So it's like we're having to cater to this very luxurious, group of people and
Mhm.
be included in that group of people. But then meanwhile, we're like the duck on the surface of the water. Underneath, we're paddling extremely fast. On the top, we're
Oh, we
very
love
elegant
that.
and poised.
Wait, I don't know if I've ever heard that
I don't
before,
think
but
I have either.
no, but that's like a great example because, right, you really like you want to appear so elegant and like it's fine and we're well versed in this and you should trust us with the money that you're throwing into here.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, you're learning on your feet.
I
That's tough.
I don't think people realize how much it costs to create a collection. It's
No,
such
people
an
don't realize. Yeah.
ungodly cost, and we're just, like, we're just making it work.
We're
Hmm.
very scrappy.
We're very scrappy, and
As you have to be these days.
every
Yeah.
order that we get from our website goes directly into the business,
Hmm.
of course, and, is what really is keeping us going right now is every direct to consumer order we get is, such a such a privilege to us,
Oh, for sure.
because it really does go so far.
Right. Oh, it's so important. And doing all of this together, I want to dive in a little bit work life balance, that myth, but like you guys have lived together for so long. You've been friends, partners, like all these things that you've gone through, like these different facets of life together. What is it like going through now the business together?
It's a lot. I feel like just the other day when we celebrated 7 years, we had a little, like, teary-eyed moment. We were just, like, reflecting on everything we've been through together, and
Mhm.
it's a lot, and we don't often, I guess, reflect on it, but I think
Yeah.
I think
I
we focus on maybe the negative things or the things there's always something that's going wrong, but at the same
Yeah.
time, there's always so many things that are going right, and, it's harder to see those things that are going right when, you
Oh,
know
always, right? The pressure.
I think as a couple, it was very, like, expected of us to end up working together, and we kind of always
Mhm.
knew that we wanted to do it, but we didn't expect it to happen so fast and so just, like, abruptly.
Right.
So in the end, it works out really well for us. I think we work together well, but it's been a learning process. It's a roller coaster, we
I'm
go through ups
sure.
and
and
downs. We're
every day is
together
so different.
24/7.
Oh, I can only imagine, like, the communication skills that you guys must have with each other.
We're getting we're getting pretty good at
Yeah.
communication, I have to say. It's been a work in progress, but
I feel like we're
we
learning
have
what
to.
couples
Right.
Yeah, I feel like we're learning what couples like who have been together 20 years start to learn, and we're just like thrown into
That's
everything
so true.
together. We have who knows what we'll be learning when we're like 70, but
Oh
Hopefully
my god.
nothing.
yeah, hopefully
Hopefully
nothing.
No, I'm just
nothing.
kidding.
Hopefully you guys will have like your PhD in communication by then, and it'll
Yeah.
just you'll be
We'll
good.
be fully enlightened.
No, truly, because I think of like, oh my god. I mean, me trying to talk to men just on very easy things, and it's tough out there. So I
It
can only
is.
imagine.
I think something that we heard on like a TikTok or something recently that is beneficial, and I think anybody can make use of this in a
Mhm.
relationship, is that you both partners say like, what percent are you at? Like, I'm at 80% today, so
Mhm.
if Fletcher's at 20%, that means that I gotta be a little bit stronger and
Pick up the slack.
pick up the slack, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow it could be the complete opposite ratio, or we could both be at 20, and then it's like, okay, we got to
Let's not
figure it
hurt
out.
each other.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. If we're both at 20, let's all keep it in mind. I really like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we never really actually say like what percent we're at, but like it's kind of like a general like we can tell when someone's not, 100%, and
Yeah.
it's you then step in and you have to be there.
Well,
Because at
and
the end of
it's
the day, we only have each other, with this business. Like
Right.
it's us. And we're not going to let the business affect our relationship in a negative way.
well, because
Mhm.
honestly, it's emotional. It's really deep. Like doing this creative work and putting it out there for everybody to see and putting our emotions into the actual creativity. Like it's a roller coaster. We're constantly going up and down,
Oh my
literally in
god,
the same
right.
day. We might have the highest highs and then the lowest lows. So yeah, it's figuring out how to work through that and be happy at the end of the day.
For sure. And I love what you said too about like it's a creative, like it's art that you guys are doing together. And not to discredit if anybody has like a tech business with their significant other, you know what I
Right.
mean? But you're like reaching in, like building a community, pouring your soul into this. Like it's art. It's also, it has a meaning to it with, bringing in the movements within the fashion industry too. And
Right.
like, it's all of it's heavy on its own. So to
It
bring it all
is. And
together.
at the end of the day, we are each our own person still and have our own
Mhm.
feelings and, ideas. And when each other doesn't like that idea or something, it creates a little bit of,
Turbulence.
yeah, turbulence or like sadness. And
Totally, that's fair.
um, normally, in that type of situation, if you're feeling that way, you'd go to your partner and talk about it. But we're like, you're the person who's pissing me off. So,
So like, what do you do?
Right.
Okay.
so what do we do then? We usually just take a moment and
Mhm.
try not to react right away. We luckily have a beautiful outdoor space. So, one of us goes and sits outside and
I
come
think that's the
back.
hardest part is the like creative differences, which we're normally on the same
Yeah,
page.
it's
But
usually
yeah,
pretty good.
it's emotional.
That makes sense. What do you some of you guys like what do you guys do within, you need space from a partner in whatever sense of business or personal. And I think in New York in general, I mean, one for literal space reasons, also two of more figuratively, like there's so much going on. And then, with work, the pressure of constantly like needing to be on the go. And it's so easy to take those things home, especially in this case. What are some things that you guys do to like I always call it like curate your mindset to like feel, refreshed the next day and still be excited about everything and step away from the pressure and like be finding the pleasure in it all.
For
We're kind of in
me,
the thick of learning that, I feel
yeah.
like, right
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
summer is exceptionally more challenging because with the CFDA and everything, there's a lot going on. But
Mhm.
for me, it's something very simple, but taking a bath like every other day at the minimum is
Mhm.
something
or
that,
2 times a day.
no, that does
We're
not
2 times a
happen.
day
Only if
out.
I'm sick. But that's something that's really important to me.
Mhm.
Using Suzanne Kaufman bath oil,
Uh-huh.
putting that out there so you people buy it because it's so good.
Oh my god. Okay, I
Um,
need to try it.
yes, you have to try it.
It's
So like
amazing.
that's something that I do to kind of unwind. Um, I don't know. You can say what you do.
I just do a little bit of everything. I'll journal, I'll read a
Mhm.
book, I'll just stare at the wall if I have to. Like
Honestly, effective sometimes.
honestly,
Yes.
it's living in the same apartment, working out of the same apartment, like having our brand, having personal lives, having to like clean and cook. It's all packaged into the same space. So sometimes literally
Yeah.
just getting out of the apartment. Like my sister lives in the city. She's been here for like a year. So I'll go hang out with her
Oh,
sometimes.
fun.
So yeah, it's really getting out of that like I don't know, mindset sometimes.
Yes.
And it's hard to disconnect. Especially for me, it's
It's
very
hard.
hard because there's always someone saying something to you. We're running our Instagram. I have to make sure that we're posting enough, and orders comes in, we're packing them and
Mhm.
shipping them. Like it's just like
Wow.
so much that is constantly on our brains that I think for us now it's like we have to write down everything because that's the only way that we can
Yeah,
keep
we can't
track.
keep
Oh, I
track.
bet.
And
Yes.
like usually before that I would be like, I'll just remember everything, but now it's becoming too many things to
Too
remember,
many things. Oh, I can
which is a
imagine.
good thing.
Yeah.
But
Right,
it's
good thing.
also just kind of figuring out how to be organized and make make sure that we're not just devoting 100% of our life towards Tanner Fletcher because at the end of the day, it's also Tanner and Fletcher. So
Exactly.
I
Like,
think we always thought we were
oh,
both like
yeah.
organized people or very like work life balanced, but having been thrown into this, like Tanner Fletcher is our livelihood and it's like we're the only
yeah,
ones that work there. It's like,
Right.
what do we do?
No, that's
So,
like an extra set of pressure. And having been my own boss for years, and like, there's always something else that you can be doing.
right,
And it's like separating yourself from, okay, like, Kendall, that task can just be done tomorrow.
right.
It's
mhm.
totally fine.
I think
It's hard.
it's especially stressful when you are providing for yourself and there's there's no check coming in from employer. So
Mhm.
we're like, okay, bank account's getting low. We need to figure out how to make money now.
Now, like literally now.
So it's just
Yes.
like that constant I guess struggle of just keeping going. It's a lot.
Mhm.
It's a grind for sure.
It's a grind. It's a grind, but
But we're happy. We love what we're doing and
Yeah.
yeah.
it's just the way that the world has reacted to it has been, I mean, very much on our side, even though it doesn't always feel like it. We're so grateful.
It's really amazing, and like all the hard work is absolutely paying off. I'm so excited to see what's next. And with that, we'll close it of any kind of hints at what we can be expecting this fall or into next year too.
We're still kind of figuring out the exact sort of show presentation situation that
Mhm.
we're doing right now. We're keeping it a little bit open for the next like couple
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah, yeah. We have a
And
little
then we have a
time.
little time still, and fashion shows come together very quickly.
Yeah, I don't want to
They
give
do.
away too much because it could change like a million times.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
you'll see, I think, a little bit more of an elegant side to the brand,
Mhm.
a little bit more technical details, and just some really great, you know, textures and like fabrications and techniques that we haven't done before.
And the feeling from the
Okay.
collection will be like really romantic, really nostalgic, of course, as
Of course.
always.
But we're leaning extra hard into the romantic side of the brand because we're
Ooh,
kind of
okay.
realizing that's the direction I think that is really what we love and also
Mhm.
what our customers are most interested in.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot, like societally, there's a lot of craving for that, like this elegance and romance. And I feel like kind of right out of COVID, it was very fun party. Like we're really out there enjoying ourselves. And now there's almost this like refined nature. You're really like
Mhm.
caring for yourself and moving. Like I saw some quote recently about like moving slowly through, and it's very like swan like
Hmm.
elegance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I feel
I'm
like
here
after
for it.
COVID, people are just wanting to like live their lives in the way they want to live them in a much more
Mhm.
curated and aesthetically pleasing way and where it just makes them happy and feel good. So that has to do with the romance and the imaging of the world we live in.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's all a form of self care, truly in
It
itself.
is, yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Amazing, guys. Well, I am so excited to see what's next. I know it's going to be absolutely fabulous. And thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks
and
for
thanks for the
having
support from
us.
the beginning.
Of course. Oh, I'm so excited.